welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant, and I have been a lactation consultant for about 20 years now. Been working with families, been certified since 2008, and been working with families since a couple of years before that. I have 3 kids, 23-year-old twins. I had to think about that for a second. 23-year-old twins and a 25-year-old. All my twins are boy, girl, and then my 25-year-old's a boy, and they are all breastfed kids, and I'm here to help.
And I'm Abby, the badass breastfeeder, and I have a social work background, and so I'm always coming from a social work perspective, and I have a 14-year-old and a 11-year-old. And my 14-year-old was actually formula fed and breastfed until he was 6.5. Not formula fed until he was 6.5. Formula fed first, then breastfed until he was 6.5. And then my youngest was breastfed until he was 5. And today's episode is brought to you by Nursing Queen. And Nursing Queen makes stylish, cool, funky, awesome nursing wear that you won't even be able to tell is nursing wear. And we will hear more from them later. But you can head to badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com and check out our sponsor page. If you ever need anything, see if you can give them any of your business because they make this podcast possible. And we are on Patreon. And we would love to see you join our private and judgment-free community. You can access lactation support from members, from Dianne, your IBCLC, and from myself in our weekly wellness checks. You'll also receive access to our new podcast, Revolution Parenting, where we talk about parenting topics to grow kinder and more compassionate adults. You will have a community of badasses to receive parenting support from during the most challenging times. Your membership helps fund evidence-based, no-nonsense support here on the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast and over at Revolution Parenting. Head to the top link in the show notes under this episode, wherever you're listening from. And we are still hosting our ongoing giveaway for people who leave reviews around the internet, like on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you're listening from. Leave a review, take a screenshot, and send it along with your address to badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll send you one of those goodie bags that we send out every month to our Patreon members of thank you for nursing in public cards and podcast stickers. If you cannot leave a review, then you can share the podcast on your social media and send a screenshot of that as well. I'm also still looking for breastfeeding photos. I would love to share those on my social media. If you have a breastfeeding photo that you would be okay with me sharing, please send it to badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com with a bit of your story or not. And Dianne has our review of the week.
Yeah, and I think this one was posted on her socials because it says, I'm trying this new podcast so far. I think it's very cool. It's been a great support while learning my new role as a counselor, and I'm excited to help lots of moms in our local communities. So it sounds like she posted this maybe on her Facebook page or her Instagram or something and then shared it there.
Cool.
Which was a great, I love it. Great idea. And she got a goodie bag for doing that. So that's all you have to do. Post it up on your social media. You could link if you're posting it on Facebook, you could always link the episode that you listen to, share it along with, just something that talks about us a little bit. This is, the podcast I'm listening to.
Yeah. We're just trying to spread the word of the podcast. We're just trying to get the word out. So if you help us, we appreciate it. And we'll send you a goodie bag.
That's all you got to do. And today we are going to talk about birth interventions. And it's been a little while since we talked about this. Sometimes it comes up like with people who will email us and stuff like that. But just thought we'd kind of revisit it and talk about it again. Doesn't hurt, right?
Not at all, because people are giving birth all the time and needing interventions. And
yeah, absolutely.
It does affect breastfeeding. So it's good to be prepared.
It does. And I think people don't realize it to what extent it can affect breastfeeding.
Yeah.
I mean, just even little things like the way the baby's positioned in the womb can affect breastfeeding. I always like think back to like my twins and how they were, because they were big, my twins, and I don't know how they could stand each other in there. Like they were squished up against each other. So I don't know how they could stand. They were 8'4" and 7'13".
Wow.
So yeah, they were big. They were 16 pounds together.
Holy moly.
I don't know how they handled being in the womb together and how they didn't get squished up to the point of needing more help with breastfeeding, because they were definitely like, it could just really impact, their feeding positioning and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So to start, one of the things that I always want to make sure that people are aware of, and I am not saying anything negative about this, even a little bit, but medications during delivery can impact how the babies feed. And I'm not saying don't get medication during delivery. Don't take it as me saying that, because that's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying, and I had a medicated delivery, and I know Abby had a medicated delivery, and all I'm saying is that it can, just know that it can cause some feeding issues. So that way, if you do come across some feeding issues, you'll know like, oh, this is just from the medication. It's going to go away. It's not something that's going to last forever. The baby just needs a little time. That's all you need to just remember and remind yourself if you have feeding issues after a medicated delivery. Now, sometimes, like when I worked in the hospital, like a lot of times the nurses didn't realize that that's what was going on. And a lot of people still are really being told, oh, the medication doesn't go to the baby.
Right.
It absolutely goes to the baby. There's a plethora of research. I did my master's thesis on how epidurals can impact breastfeeding. And medication absolutely goes to the baby. I mean, they're putting it in your spine. Like it's going directly into the baby, and it goes to the baby. Like it's,
it does. There's no way around it. There's no way around it. It does.
There really is no way around it. And what it does to you, like it make you sleepy. Can make you sleepy depending on what the medication is, can make you groggy, can depress your nervous system, like that kind of stuff, can also pass to the baby. And you might get a baby that is not sucking as vigorously. They're not as coordinated as they need to be. They're not as interested in feeding maybe as we want them to be. They're a little bit more groggy. They're a little bit more lethargic. They're just kind of like, whatever kind of thing.
They're tired from the whole ordeal.
Yeah.
And the meds, just like you.
Yeah, exactly.
And, neither one of you is going to feel like that forever, but it does happen in the right after.
Yeah, it's something that can happen. And some babies, it affects more than other babies. And I think it really depends on, like, because there's no, I don't even know how to say this to where it's going to make sense. There's no, like, recipe for what your epidural is going to be. Like, it's different everywhere. Like, all places use different medications. Most of it's, fentanyl. It's like fentanyl and something else. And
really, it's fentanyl?
Yeah, it's fentanyl.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it just depends on the, like, where you are giving birth, who your anesthesiologist is, or your nurse anesthetist, whoever's doing it, and what they're using and how much they're using. If they're using more, your baby's going to get more. If they're using less, your baby's going to get less. I think it really just depends, on a lot of different factors. If you have a long induction, you might receive epidural for several days. If you have a very quick birth, it might be something that they only, experience for just a very short period of time. So it really just does depend on a lot of different factors. So you have to kind of take a lot of that into account. when you're thinking about it too, about like, well, how long did you have this epidural? How long was, was this medication in your system?
Mm-hmm.
And then it just, babies sometimes just don't feed as well. I had this, I thinking about this one specific situation that I had with a family where she had a 3-day induction and she said she had a very strong epidural. Like she couldn't feel anything. Very, very strong. And even when it came time to push, she couldn't feel anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember even from my own epidural being like, how am I going to know when to push? And they're like, oh, by then it'll kind of like wear off and the adrenaline will kick in and you'll feel, you'll know when to push and all that stuff. And that was true. Like that's what happened. But some people, that's not what happens. And they do have a very strong epidural and you can't feel what's going on. And you just are kind of going with it. And she had this very strong epidural. It was a 3-day induction, so it was days of epidural. Baby was not a good feeder at all. Like we couldn't get him to do much of anything. He was very sleepy. He just wouldn't feed. It took a lot of work to get him to do anything. He wasn't transferring milk well. She was mostly pumping and bottle feeding. She had 2 other kids at home. It was very, very difficult. And she finally kind of settled into pumping and bottle feeding because it was easier than sitting there for a half an hour trying to get him to feed.
Yeah.
And then supplement him on top of that because he wasn't transferring like he needed to. His coordination wasn't there. So, but then after a couple of months, she did put him to the breast and he latched and he did really well. So she ended up breastfeeding him. But it took a long time for them to get to that point. And it can, like, babies will get there, but it just depends on what they're going through at the time. And he just needed a lot of intervention. We did a lot of work with him. Another thing that can lead to another birth intervention that can lead to breastfeeding things is like if you have like a vacuum delivery or a forceps delivery, those babies tend to struggle a little bit, maybe with different issues. So vacuum delivery or forceps delivery, they can cause some bruising, which can cause more risk of jaundice. So then you're talking separation of mother and baby if jaundice ends up being a situation for them. Bruising is pretty common with vacuum, especially on the head. You can get some bruising there from that. I remember seeing a baby in the hospital where it was like a bruise like right around his eye. And I thought it was a birthmark. It's how like bright it was, like dark it was. And they said, no, it was from the vacuum. And I was like, wow, that's poor little baby.
Yeah.
But they can get that bruising on their head. And then sometimes they don't feed as well. Like their coordination is off with vacuum or forceps. They might have some pain, like with forceps that goes around their jawline and into like on their face and on their jaw. Not as common. Like you don't see, again, forceps is something that's like, that depends on how your baby is, like whether they choose whether to use forceps or vacuum. It might depend on how your baby is coming down, how they're presenting.
Yeah.
And what the doctor is most comfortable doing too. Like what were they trained in? And you want them to do, like, I would want my doctor to do what he's trained in doing.
Right.
Like,
Totally.
Yep. I had a doctor actually one time tell me that he would prefer to do a C-section over vacuum because
that's what he knows.
That's what he knows, but the risk of vacuum extraction was less than risking of C-section.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't it interesting?
Mm-hmm.
So just really just depends on how your baby's presenting, how your baby's coming down. Sometimes, those situations where if your baby's just not in the right position, you just can't, a lot of this stuff you just can't help, right? You just can't help what's going on. They can't always move your baby into the right position. Sometimes they're presenting where they're sunny side up, as we call it, where their head is.
That's how Jack was
born. Oh, was he really?
Yeah.
Was he born that way, or did he turn?
No, he was born that way.
Oh my gosh,
it hurts.
Yeah,
because the back of their head's on your spine or something.
On your tailbone, yeah.
Yeah. That was really, that was something.
Ugh. Yeah, and that's a harder birth for sure. Harder labor, a lot of back labor, and a harder delivery. Yeah, but they can be born that way, as Abby said.
Yep, saw his face.
Aw, they're just born looking at you. Yeah, born looking up. But that can be like a harder delivery, and sometimes they just don't do as well with those harder deliveries. Believe it or not, like a very quick delivery, those can sometimes be a difficult breastfeeding situation as well. Those precipitous births, because they're just so fast, can cause some bruising sometimes on their face when they come out that fast. Sometimes they're just not feeding quite as well. They just don't have as much interest in feeding sometimes with those situations. C-section deliveries, we know sometimes that those can be a little bit rough, depending on the situation of why you need to have the C-section, of course. But those babies, especially if it was like they weren't in the birth canal, like you didn't labor first, they can be full of fluid, those babies, because when they're going through the birth canal and they're being like, you're going through contractions and things like that, the fluid is getting squeezed out of them. So they don't have as much fluid in them when they're born. But when babies are born via C-section, sometimes they have more fluid in them, and they're a little bit more, like, we used to call them kind of gunky, like they'd be spitting up amniotic fluid and stuff. And they're just not as interested in feeding. They're just kind of blah. Yeah. They just don't have as much interest in feeding. We should probably take a break, though.
Okay, let's do it. We'll be right back.
Do it. We'll be right back, everybody.
Today's episode is brought to you by Nursing Queen. This brand is a game changer for breastfeeding moms, making life so much easier. When you're traveling, or when you're out and about running errands, or pumping at work. Their tops and their dresses are designed with hidden access for nursing and pumping. Forget trying to lift up your entire shirt, or ripping the seams, pulling it down, or completely undressing to feed your baby or pump. Their clothing are designed with hidden zippers or hidden like flap entryway things where you can't tell that they're there. Their sweatshirts are perfect for the cooler weather. They have a variety of sweatshirts that are just adorable and very cool, and I love them. All of their orders are designed, packed, and shipped from their warehouse outside of Tampa, Florida. And they have a lot of new styles and a lot of cool clothes to look at. Go and treat yourself to some of the Nursing Queen clothing. You'll be wearing it for a while, because I've been wearing mine for like a decade, and I'm not exaggerating. Don't forget to use code BADASS for 10% off your purchase. That's nursingqueen.com, code BADASS for 10% off. And all of our sponsors and their promo codes can be found in the show notes under this episode, wherever you're listening from. Also over at Badass Breastfeeding Podcast, where you'll also find all of our other episodes, our favorite resources page, and information about scheduling your very own one-on-one online lactation consultation with Dianne.
Yes. So one of the things that helps with all this, so we're going to talk about some things that can help if you are in a situation where your baby's not necessarily feeding all that great. Maybe you had a medicated delivery, or a long induction, or, a C-section delivery, any of those kind of intervention things that might have happened. one of the things that can help a lot is the skin to skin. So continue to do skin to skin. Sometimes that is delayed depending on the situation of the birth. And that's okay. Like we always say, oh, mothers and babies should be going skin to skin as soon as the baby's born. And that's true. But if there's a situation where the baby is separated from you for a short period of time after they're born, just so they can, check them, make sure everything's good, and then give you that baby from skin to skin. Sometimes with C-section deliveries, you don't get the baby to go skin to skin until you're in recovery. That is okay. Still do that skin to skin contact with your baby, because that will help to bring them around and help them to get the benefit of those hormones, and will help their cortisol levels to go down and help them connect with you more. So we want them to be skin to skin with you for long periods of time. So definitely keep them there, keep them on your skin for as long as you possibly can, and do that, hour when you can, that golden hour when you get your baby. They will likely feed much better if they are skin to skin with you first. Sometimes with longer inductions, you might get a lot of fluid too, and that can actually interfere with breastfeeding. So one of the things too that I think is important to understand is that Pitocin, which is what is typically used for induction, or not even for induction, but sometimes they use it to augment your labor and to kind of move things along. Like maybe your labor is already gone or it's already started, you're already in labor, but they want to just move things along a little bit. Maybe you stalled out, so they'll go, oh, let's give you a little Pitocin, whatever. A lot of times they'll give it after the baby's born to help with your uterus contracting. That's pretty common that they do that. Pitocin acts like an antidiuretic, which tells your body to hold on to fluid. So if you received a lot of fluid and you're swollen, your breast tissue is going to be swollen. So that might make it a little bit harder for your baby to latch. And a lot of times we don't notice this until day 2. After the first 24 hours, we might notice that your breast tissue is getting a little bit more swollen. And that can cause a baby to struggle with getting a deeper latch, which means that's going to be a little bit more painful for you. So sometimes we have these babies that are doing really well in the first 24 hours with latching. And then as your breast tissue becomes a little bit more swollen from all that fluid, then you end up with a baby that's struggling to get a latch. So that can be a little bit frustrating. Hand expression can help a lot. Ice will help a lot, icing the breast, because it is a lot of swelling. It's fluid in your breast tissue. So we want to bring that fluid down. As your milk starts to come in, you're going to even be more full. So you want to do icing and hand expression to get that fluid down, get the baby to latch a little bit better. If we can get your baby latching better, they're going to be able to get what they need and to help you also stay more comfortable. So hand expression is going to be better, way better than a pump, because the pump is just going to pull that fluid forward. So hand expression is where we want that, to get that colostrum. So fluid can be hard, and that's especially if they gave you, because they have to, if you're going to get an epidural, they have to give you a thing of fluid first. Usually they give you a whole IV bag. And then a lot of times they'll keep the fluid going while you're going through your labor and all that stuff. Same with C-sections, they're going to give you fluid. So sometimes people come back, especially if there was a long induction, with oh yeah, I had 2 or 3 bags of fluid. It's wow, that's a lot. It's going to be a lot of fluid. And that can cause delayed lactogenesis, which means your milk coming in a little bit later. C-section deliveries, we know that can cause delayed milk coming in. First time C-section deliveries, it might be an extra day or so before your milk comes in. Postpartum hemorrhage, if you lost a lot of blood, that can be a delay in the milk coming in. Lots of fluid, that can be a delay in the milk coming in. So we need to like really kind of make sure that the baby's getting what they need, obviously, but that we're also putting the baby to the breast as often as we possibly can. So that is going to set up your milk supply when it does come in for having that better milk supply. They might have you pumping a little bit sooner if you had a situation where the baby's not going to the breast well, they're not feeding well, they might have you pumping instead. Remember that pumping is not the best way to get colostrum out. Pumping is fine for like stimulating that supply. But if you need to feed the baby and the baby's not latching well and they're not getting the colostrum well, hand expression is what's going to do it for you. Hand expression is going to be the best thing to get that milk out. I think, didn't we read something recently where the mom said that she wasn't, like, they wanted her to pump instead of hand express. They brought her a pump instead and said, or maybe I was reading that somewhere else, where the hospital she was at said that they wanted her to pump. They didn't want her to hand express. And it's like,
I feel, well, because the hospital doesn't know. Right? I mean, like they don't,
should, but sometimes
they should, but they don't know like these things.
Yeah. Sometimes people think that a pump is going to be more effective. And it just isn't when it comes to colostrum. It just, like, the colostrum will just, like, stick there on the flanges. It doesn't drip. It's too sticky. It's too thick. So colostrum is better for hand expression. But if your baby is not latching well, they might have you pumping. So that can feel a little bit overwhelming and frustrating if you're trying to just, like, recover and they got you latching this baby every 2 to 3 hours and then you're pumping every 2 to 3 hours on top of it. You're already doing so much work. So just try to kind of remind yourself that this is very short-lived and that it's just to kind of make sure you get off on the right track as far as milk supply. If there's a separation for you and your baby because of any of, what has been happening during labor or consequences of labor and delivery or anything like that, you will be able to feed your baby still, but you might be pumping on top of it. Or if they're not feeding, if they're doing like IVs with your baby or something, and your baby is not taking anything in, then you might just be pumping. It can just feel like so overwhelming. Whole way. And like if you're separated from your baby and you're going down to the special care nursery or the NICU every couple hours to be able to even hold your baby, like that is really hard. That is just really, really hard. And, it's just, and you're already so emotional and hormonal and
exhausted,
and you're recovering and you're exhausted. And oh my gosh, it's so much. And I remember one time when I worked at the hospital, walking with a mother down to the special care nursery so that I could help her with the feed. And she's like, all right, the mom, like the mom was saying to me, she's like, all right, I'm going to try not to cry this time when I go in there, because the special care nurses are always like, oh, let's try not to cry this time.
Oh my God, what?
I know. And she's like, so I'm going to try not to cry. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, you're separated from your baby.
How did I punch you all and we all cry together? That's so unbelievable.
It was really like very just non-empathetic, you know, like it was just, I couldn't believe it when she told me that. I was like, oh my gosh, like
that's so sad.
All you need to, if you're separated from your baby and you've got to walk down to the special care nursery in order to be
How about if I'm crying, it's okay?
Right, exactly.
I don't need a list from the nurse on the reasons why it's okay for me to cry or not.
Oh, it was so frustrating.
That's so
I know, it was so icky. I was like, oh, come on. Leave this mother alone. but you might just, you might be feeling all kinds of ways about what's going on. And that's okay. Like, it's a lot. If you have to actually be discharged from the hospital without your baby, like it's a situation where your baby's under jaundice lights or something like that, like that's really hard. And you are stuck like camping out at the hospital, like that's, sometimes they have a room for you there. Sometimes they don't, depending on what kind of hospital setting you're in and how much room they have and how many people are there delivering at the time and all of that kind of stuff. But it can be really a really devastating situation to leave the hospital and leave your baby behind. So lots of pumping is going to be happening there. Lots of hormonal stuff. You're just really going to be feeling so defeated. And this is very short-lived. It is very short-lived. Get the support from the lactation consultants. Friends and family, definitely let them help you with whatever you need help with. And it's going to go, it'll go quick, and then you'll get that baby back with you. Just kind of remember that you're going to have, limited mobility. Epidurals are meant to keep you from being able to feel anything from the waist down. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it takes a little bit of time, like to get that feeling back to where you can get up and walk around, like confidently. Same thing with surgery. Like you don't want to like get up and fall.
Your runway walk is not what you're going to be doing right now.
Your runway walk. Yeah, absolutely. But you might be kind of feeling like, that post-operative pain. If you had surgery, if you had like and we haven't even really discussed like, cause I know you had the episiotomy.
Yes.
How that is considered like a surgical cut. Mm-hmm. That is, that's a repair. That's something, people feel really a lot of pain with. Mm-hmm. Trying to sit, trying to position a baby. That can be really challenging to get those babies, a C-section delivery, getting a baby into a position where it feels comfortable for you mm-hmm. to breastfeed. Those kinds of things can be really challenging. So using lots of pillows, laying back can be really a lot better for you. Putting your legs up, if it was a situation where you had stitches or an episiotomy, putting your legs up, putting a pillow underneath your knees, getting that pressure off your perineum is going to be key for you for when you're breastfeeding and positioning your baby. A lot of times they'll put you in like a football hold position where the baby's on the side of your body. If you had a C-section, that's great. But if you're not comfortable, some people just aren't comfortable with a baby in that. I was never comfortable with football hold.
I could never figure that out.
Yeah.
I never really.
Yeah. It can feel tricky to kind of get the baby in a position where you feel like your arms are supporting the baby enough. And yeah, it can be a little bit hard for some people.
But I also didn't have a need. I mean, if you had a C-section, you might be like, all right, I definitely want to figure this out.
Yeah. Lots of support, lots of pillows, making sure that the baby is well supported on your side. You can try the baby across the front of you as long as the baby's not like directly positioned on your C-section incision, then you'll probably be fine. But just kind of play around with different positions. Leaning back is good. Like I said, leaning back is good, like that biological nurturing position where you're leaning back, the baby's across the front of you. That can be a really good position for surgery or for episiotomies or stitches. So try those positions as well. And don't feel like you can't call a lactation consultant. You can call, and sometimes people are like, I called the lactation consultant for every feeding. Yes, that's what they're there for.
Yeah.
Like if they are there at the hospital, call on them for help with getting your baby into a position that feels okay for you. and don't kind of feel like, oh, but I need to do this by myself when I'm at home. But you're not at home. You've got the help there. So use it. Sometimes it could feel like, why is my body not working the way I need it to? Why is this not, why can't I get this to work right? Why can't I get this baby positioned well? Why can't I get, it's okay. You're learning. You're just still learning how to kind of figure things out. Supplementation is very high with these babies that aren't feeding well. So this is kind of where like you might get some supplementation encouraged. If you can get supplementation via hand expressed colostrum, that is great. And that's all you'll need. If you need to do it via formula, that's why the formula is there. But don't try to kind of resist giving the baby so much formula that they're not interested in breastfeeding. Still do lots of skin to skin with them, and make sure that they are always close to you if you have your baby with you. And that is kind of it on interventions in a nutshell. Lots of stuff to watch for. Just remember that it's all very, very, it goes by very quickly. Like it is not something that's going to last forever. All the kind of, the stuff that you're going through, the cascade of interventions and all of that stuff, it's very short-lived. So you will get to the point where your baby is actually feeding fine and you are feeling better and things are normalized again. But it might feel a little bit chaotic for the first couple days. That's about it.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.